Nobody inside NASCAR expected the conversation around Kyle Busch to change this fast just days ago. Fans were still debating playoff chances, rivalries, and whether Kyle Busch could add even more wins before retirement. But now, the entire NASCAR world is focused on something far more emotional: the family he left behind. And honestly, that reality is hitting fans harder than many expected. For years, people knew Kyle Busch as rowdy. Fans always knew Kyle Busch as one of the most aggressive and fearless drivers NASCAR has ever seen. The guy who never backed down from controversy. Whether fans loved him or hated him, everybody watched him. But behind the interviews, behind the rivalries, and behind the chaos that came with being one of NASCAR's biggest stars, there was another side of Kyle Busch that longtime fans understood very well. Off the track, he wasn't just a NASCAR star, he was a husband, a father, and someone who truly lived for his family. And now, everything around that family has changed overnight. During the emotional tribute weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway, fans described the atmosphere as completely different from a normal race weekend. Drivers stayed unusually quiet inside the garage. Team members looked emotional. Thousands of fans stood in silence as tributes continued across NASCAR. And standing at the center of those heartbreaking moments were Samantha Busch, Brexton, Lennox, Kurt Busch, and the rest of the Busch family, trying to stay strong in front of the entire racing world. But the moment affecting fans most right now involves Kyle's son, Brexton Busch. Because to NASCAR fans, Brexton was never just Kyle Busch's child. He was his best friend. For years, fans watched Kyle help Brexton race across the country. They traveled together constantly. They celebrated victories together. Kyle spent countless hours mentoring him, training him, and slowly helping him build his own identity in youth racing. That father-son connection became one of the most recognizable family stories in NASCAR, which is why this tragedy feels so personal to so many fans now. And honestly, many people believe Brexton could someday carry the Busch family legacy into NASCAR's future. The signs were already there before this tragedy. Even at a young age, Brexton had already earned over 100 youth racing victories. Clips of his races spread constantly across NASCAR social media, and fans regularly compared parts of his driving style to Kyle because of how aggressive and confident he looked behind the wheel. One emotional moment especially hit fans hard online. Shortly after the news broke, Brexton reportedly changed his social media profile photo to a picture with his father. It sounds like a small detail, but for many fans, that was the moment everything suddenly felt real. Just a little boy grieving his father in front of the entire world. And then another emotional discussion started spreading throughout the NASCAR community. Multiple reports claimed Richard Childress Racing could keep Kyle Busch's iconic number 8 car untouched for now, with some fans hoping the number could someday become part of Brexton's future if he reaches NASCAR's top level. And honestly, that possibility is making people emotional already. Just imagine hearing the words years from now, Brexton Busch will drive the number 8 car. For longtime NASCAR fans, that would become one of the most emotional moments the sport has ever seen. Because suddenly, Kyle Busch's legacy would feel alive again through his son. But while fans focus on Brexton's future, many people are also thinking about Samantha Busch and everything she experienced beside Kyle throughout his career. Samantha wasn't simply standing next to a NASCAR superstar. She stood beside Kyle during championships, controversies, injuries, pressure, and some deeply personal struggles the couple openly discussed for years. Many fans remember Kyle and Samantha speaking publicly about infertility struggles and Eve treatments, painful experiences many families quietly go through in private. Instead of hiding those moments, they shared them honestly. And that honesty made many NASCAR fans feel personally connected to them as a family. That's part of why watching Samantha during the tribute weekend became so emotional for people. Fans remember how much she fought beside Kyle during the hardest periods of his life. And according to several recent reports, the family had also been dealing with major financial stress connected to an alleged insurance-related scam that reportedly cost them millions of dollars. Now imagine carrying all of that pressure, then suddenly losing the person who held the family together. That's why many fans feel this story became bigger than racing almost instantly. Another heartbreaking part of this tragedy involves Kyle's older brother, Kurt Busch. For decades, NASCAR fans watched the Busch brothers push each other at the highest level of motorsports. Sometimes they argued, sometimes they competed aggressively against each other, but underneath everything, there was always a strong bond between them. And now Kurt Busch is facing something no brother ever wants to experience. One old quote from Kurt has recently started spreading online again because fans now hear it differently after Kyle's passing. Years ago, Kurt proudly admitted he believed Kyle would eventually become an even greater driver than himself. Looking back now, many NASCAR fans believe he was right. Kyle Busch became one of the defining stars of modern NASCAR. 63 Cup Series wins, 2 championships, a future Hall of Famer without question. But beyond all the trophies and records, the emotional scenes from Charlotte reminded fans of something more important. To Samantha, Kyle was her husband. To Brexton and Lennox, he was their father. To Kurt Busch, he was still his little brother. And to longtime NASCAR fans, he was one of the sport's most unforgettable personalities. That's why the garage reportedly felt so quiet during tribute weekend. Because Kyle Busch always felt larger than life. Fans thought Rowdy would always be around NASCAR somehow. Whether it was winning races, making headlines, or getting into rivalries with other drivers, Kyle Busch was always at the center of attention in NASCAR, bringing energy to the sport every single weekend. And now suddenly, that energy is gone. But strangely enough, many fans believe this may not truly be the end of the Busch story. Because every time people watch Brexton race now, they see a young driver carrying one of NASCAR's biggest family legacies on his shoulders. And if he someday reaches NASCAR's biggest stage, if he someday climbs into that number 8 car, that future moment could become one of the most emotional scenes NASCAR has ever witnessed. Because maybe Kyle Busch's legacy continues in a different way. Not only through wins, not only through championships, but through family. And honestly, that may become the most powerful part of his story. So before you leave this video, send your prayers and support to Samantha Busch, Brexton, Lennox, Kurt Busch, and the entire Busch family during this incredibly painful time. And if you believe Kyle Busch's legacy could someday continue through Brexton Busch, make sure you subscribe to NASCAR Nation News for more NASCAR stories and emotional updates.